Hey everybody, Kevin here. I wanted to share with you an excerpt of a recent design membership call that we had where we went through from completely blank page to maybe 30 or 40 seconds of music composed completely from scratch with no preparation in advance. And we talk about all sorts of different things like the template that I use and what is some of the ideation process, what am I doing as I'm thinking through what this process looks like, and what are some of my different inspirations, and how do I play off of ideas, and how do I put them together. And so hopefully this is a helpful look into my process, at least one version of it, and hopefully this gives you some insight and inspiration to continue to evolve your own process. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks. The first thing I would try is just try to create a mood or try to create a melody, and maybe something will kind of spark from there. And so the first thing I wanted to kind of talk about is uh, simplicity. Like, how can we come up with something that's simple and memorable and interesting? And this is from scratch, you know? And so if you have a melody that you want to use, or like a piece of music that you want to arrange, you can apply these concepts that we're going to talk about. Just use those pitches instead of the ones that I'm going to make up right now. And so we can try different things, right? So usually when I open up my template, I'm going to like compose something. The first thing I would do is just like figure out a tempo I want to use. So I'll use the metronome tool, and 80's okay, because that's 80, it's 160. That's, you know, maybe 120 if you use dotted rhythms. And so like 80's good, but maybe let's try, I don't know, like let's try 120 for now. Maybe that's fine. Because 120, I can always tripletize and we can always go faster. We can go 180 on the dotted, um, etc. So let's try 120. Okay. And then I've got different tracks on my template here. So these are all just like pianos, but they're like panned right, left, right, left. And these ones, for example, have like more reverb on them. I don't know if you can hear that, but like these are more simple. Left, right, more left, rights, more reverb. This melody one, a lot of reverb. This harmony one, pretty straight. Bass one has like low end pushed up a little bit. So that's really all I use initially. So one thing I want to talk about is just coming up with a melody. So let's just do that. Let's just like improvise for a minute, and I'll just kind of put down some notes and just see what it sounds like. I'm on the bass one. I want to be on melody. It's kind of cool. Let's just do that. Okay, really simple. And then everyone knows about the capture recording tool that we've talked about in the past. But basically, as I'm playing, if I hit the capture recording, it'll capture what I just did. And then I'll quantize that to quarter note. And let's listen to that. Okay. So a couple things I want to talk through here. It's this really simple, but it's kind of this stark melody. Um, I I want to be really mindful of not just stopping here, right? And this is kind of the point of this conversation right now. So let's take a look at some of the different things that we can do here. And turn that off. So let's just double click and let's look at the velocity. So the velocity, like the aggressiveness of this, is really going to determine like a lot of the mood that's being created. So like, let's say if I took all the velocities and like made them fairly aggressive. Okay, I think that's going to be way different than if I just like put them way down here. like right off the bat, like this is a different story being told between those two, right? So I guess my question to all of you, which one resonated with you with no context? Which one was more interesting to develop as we move forward? There's no right or wrong answer.
I like the softer version.
Okay, we like the softer version.
Agreed.
Okay, cool. So let's play around with that. All right, so the next thing I would try is, now that we've got this melody and I just recorded the rhythm, like what do we think about the rhythm? Is it interesting? Is it like really straight? Is it like, where is the peak? Like, where's the question and answer, right? Like if you're going to say, for example, the first 3 notes might be the question and the second 2 are the answer, right? So let's think about rhythm and space for a minute. Let's listen again. So I might look at this and just look at the rhythm of this, and like I might feel like, you know what, I actually might want a little more space here. Like, let's move that over. Okay, so that makes this arrive on a beat 1. Now, what if I moved it to here? It's not a huge difference, it's just over by 1 beat, but I think ending on an upbeat almost like creates like momentum, whereas like ending something on the downbeat, it almost feels like a conclusion. Does that make sense? So let's listen with the Met. Because your natural tendency is that next beat 1 is like where the groove is, right? If I'm thinking, that next beat 1, if I had moved the melody over here, it would have felt like it had just concluded. So if you were going to repeat, let's say for some reason I was going to want it to repeat this, and just hold down Option key, and let's say I repeated the melody, obviously it repeats right there. Me personally, I would put that into the category of regular. Like, it's, you know, Chris had asked a question about, you know, pop songs, and regular, I know it's like very subjective word. I don't mean it like in a bad way. I'm just saying like it makes it feel like, okay, this is something that is just in the background. It's not something that needs to grab your attention. But just the simple act of putting this melody on the upbeat, I think opens up, like, for example, what you could do on that beat 1. So if I just put like a D flat, right? We just put like the flat 6 on this beat 1. All of a sudden it changes the identity. Or you could put this back on the F if we're not ready to change that identity. So let's see what that sounds like on the F. I don't love it on the F. What do you think? Do you like the F or do you like the D flat? Let's try D flat just for fun. And it might be too aggressive, right? So like then I would start playing around with like making it really just low endy and keeping the velocity really low, right? We like this song. Okay. So next thing. So now I got this interesting melody. or make it more reverby. I might repeat that melody again here. Let's see what happens. Okay, I don't know if I love the melody repeated, or maybe I would try something else. So instead of going, this is where I would play around a little bit. Like you might even want to think of, so let's delete that. Again, I'm just going through the composition process, like kind of mentally how I normally would. That wasn't bad. Let's keep that. Listen. Again, I'm trying to mess with the tempo just a little bit. And then if you notice, I just quantized it back to the eighth notes because it was on 30 seconds. I feel like that's waiting too long for this one. If anything, I think it should be on the and of 2 here. I'm going to try the and of 2. I don't love that it's and of 2 again, or it's like the rhythm here is 2 repeating. And right here, you're expecting it to be on the downbeat. I like that it's not on the downbeat. I'm going to put the D flat back over here and see what happens. Okay, let's listen to that. Actually, it's not bad. I don't hate it. I actually might move this to right here. Let's listen. Okay, what do you think? This is a place to start. Let's play with the velocity for a minute. No velocity. I kind of like that it did a little crescendo right there. And then it kind of comes back down, and this is down. So let's listen one last time and we'll kind of move on. But this is just generally like, you know, we spent like 10 minutes. We have like a little melody. And then, you know, you think about it, like if I move this over to the beginning of the project, so this is 0, 0, 0, and this is 22 seconds. So 22 seconds, that's a nice little intro. And then let's talk about orchestration here in a second. The other option is to put this maybe here. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, cool. So the next thing I would try after all of this, I would try like, so for example, I've got some Omnisphere things here. So let's see what this sounds like. This is just kind of like a bellish sound. So like I might actually just copy this into this Omnisphere patch. Let's just see what that sounds like. It's kind of got a mood, right? I've got another Omnisphere patch here. Let's see what this one sounds like. Let's try this one here. I don't love that one as much. And then last one. This one's a little softer. So pull it down in the mix. All right, I think that's kind of cool. It's got an identity. All right, so the next thing I would try to think about is, okay, how can I add some rhythmic interest to this, right? I think that there's already rhythmic interest in the way that we've messed around with the timing. What was that last patch? Yeah, let's see. Let's pull it up. That patch is Dream Searching Soft. Yeah. And I just, honestly, like it's weird, but I have these 3 patches in my template because there are 3 different treatments to like piano, bells, vibes, or whatever. And so I don't actually end up using these patches, but they help me with the composition process when I'm like, oh, this melody needs to be more mellow, or this melody needs to be more aggressive, or this needs to be like fast 8th notes. It just gives me a quick little tool that I can go to where I don't have to like go searching for a million sounds. So if you have like a couple sounds that you really like, that you kind of like just love playing with them, put them in your template so that they're right there and you don't have to like go looking for them. You're just going to save a million hours. Like right there, I could have opened up Omnisphere and we could have looked for a sound, but that would have been 25 minutes, right? So I'd rather just have some version of a sound and then I'm like, oh, I like this. I'm going to leave it here. And then later I'll come back and see if I can tweak this sound a little bit. But I don't want any of that like looking for a sound right now to get in the way of just putting some sketches together, if that makes sense. And plus, for me, this process is let me put something together so I can send this to whichever battery or visual or design partner I'm working with so they can react to it and say, oh, I love it. Let's keep expanding. Or they might say, this doesn't feel right. Let's try something else. And then I'm not like, well, I just spent 10 hours on this. So no, this is the show, So the whole point is we're trying to come up with some sketches and some identities, but then thinking about how we can orchestrate that, but also have a back and forth with our partners. You need to find the template. Yeah, Chad, this is actually a really good point. So if most of you know that I generally used to write in Sibelius only and do all the sound design and everything all at the same time. And I've kind of shifted back this year as an experiment to like play around in Logic a little bit more, just because I was finding this just lets me be a little bit more free creativity wise. And I'm not worried about like what they're playing, what the notation is. I do need to worry about that later. And I'd also later, as I'm notating, I want to be done. I don't want to notate and then come back and make a new MP3, right? So all of the audio playback magic stuff still applies. What I'm doing here though is just like the beginning of a process, like just trying to get some sketches put together, right? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now the next thing I would try is like, this is where I have these little left-right piano staves. And this is the part where it's like literally I'm just messing around, right? And I'm not worried about marimba parts. I'm not worried about vibe parts. And if anything, I'm just putting stuff down to create motion and like, where would the motion start? And then I can come back and orchestrate that later. So let's listen one more time and let's figure out where the motion might start. So we're kind of in this like F minor land. Here, let me pull up the keyboard so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I don't know if this will work great, but I think it will. Any questions while I'm getting this pulled up? I know I end up talking a lot during this process, so you gotta help me out if I skip something. Okay, there we go. We got a keyboard. Cool. Does that help as we're going through this process? So that's kind of the scale that I'm in. Do we want the manuscript view? Nah, let's get out of that. Okay. So let's take a look. We'll put the metronome on. So again, it was like totally out of time. I just played, but let's just see what it kind of comes out as. I'll put it to 16th notes and let's see if that did anything. It's kind of cool. It's interesting. So the other thing is I wanted to kind of fade in identity. So I'm going to like take this velocity and like kind of go like that. Like way over here. Again, I'm not worried about perfection right now. I'm just worried about like improvising and just using my instincts to tell me, do I like something or do I not like it? It's just like a toggle of, do I like it? Do I not like it? I don't care about performance. I don't care about orchestration. It's literally like it or not. If I don't like it, I delete. I try something else. Okay. I mean, it's kind of a cool idea. So thought process. I want to think about, okay, how does this come in relative to this note? And how does this come in relative to the bass? Any thoughts or ideas? Any experiments that you want to see? Like, where would you put this in relationship to these two notes? Or do you like it where it is?
Could you play it again?
Yeah.
I think it's good where it is, or maybe a tiny bit sooner to the final note in the melody.
Like here? Maybe.
Yeah, that works with like the fade in.
Yeah. Now I want you to think, okay, so we're just spitballing. Think visually. As a for ensemble arranger, we don't have to do the visual usually, but I want you to have an idea. Think visually, like what's happening on the floor during all of this, okay? So before we make any more decisions, let's see what this sounds like.
What
Thoughts?
I'm seeing is like, so you would start with probably maybe like a solo visual as like the melody is thinner and it enters the first time, like, and then the rest of the visual ensembles, like the performers would add in as it kind of develops. And then I think um on when the arpeggiation comes in, I kind of see most of the visual ensemble maybe like scattering to the drums while maybe like a section that was reserved that was not part of the first vis comes out for like a feature, like maybe like a soft snare build right there.
Okay. Aaron made a good point. Are we on the right foot if we step off here? Or are we on the right foot if we step off here?
I'm not
But
seeing,
if it's body, it doesn't matter.
yeah, I was seeing just choreography based around like
Yeah.
the accents or the
Yeah,
accents,
totally.
like the notes.
Here's the other thing that I heard, and this is good because again, none of this is right. It's just a place to have a conversation. So after listening to it again, my first instinct is this is not enough space right here at the beginning. Because this whole idea is that we start with space and it kind of like starts to trickle forward. And for me personally, it's like we have tempo almost right away. So here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to cut right here. I'm going to like just literally take the whole thing and move it over. So we have a little more space. So we can just like listen to this first note. And so like now it's a 4-bar phrase and this is on the downbeat. So it kind of became slightly regular, but I hear like, okay, if we were going to do anything on the floor, this is the first time we hear or see, you know, some sort of like something where for me personally, when I hear this, I'm like, it's pretty static. Then like maybe they like do a body move or something and they just freeze again. They move again, you know? I don't know. And so I guess that would be the conversation I would have with the visual team or the battery. There's a part of me that's like, okay, maybe this goes here because this is where they step off. And that's where maybe you finally go. And then right here, I would say, okay, cool. This is where the melody maybe comes back. So let's try this. Holding down Option, move it, and bam. So let's hear. And then let's combine this, join. I'm going to move fast here, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. And let's now pull all the velocity up because now it's a little bit more energized, right? All right. Okay, so now this is where I'd be like, okay, now that we've got this motion here, let's add some more motion. Now here's another trick. If you're not like a pianist, and I'm not, and you don't feel comfortable moving, like being on the spot and improvising in time, super easy. Don't worry about it. Go to your tempo, put in a tempo click, and let's just pull the tempo way down. Like seriously, like let's go like half tempo almost. So then you just play in this scale that we talked about, right? So what I'm going to do right now is kind of be on from here to like here on the keyboard. I'm going to just play random permutations on those notes. Okay, I kind of got out of control there at the end, but that's okay. I'll just hit the record. We'll quantize that to 16ths, and then we'll just get in there and take out whatever sucked. Let's see. Oh, I love this right here. Whatever happened there, right? Did you guys enjoy that little... Oh boy, that's where it kind of ate it. So let's just delete that. And I can loop this. So I'm going to just like cut. Let's put that here. Let's put this here. And put that there. it's kind of ridiculous, right? But that's okay. So, but we can play with the let's join this. Let's play with the velocity because the velocity might be too much. So again, we go to the automation, you click this button for automation, right? And then note velocity, right? And let's pull the velocity up and down, or just kind of, let's do that, see what happens. S for solo. Again, I'm not thinking about playability because I don't know how I'm going to orchestrate any of this. I'm just listening for, do I like it? Is this the right motion? Is this the right identity? And then once I have to orchestrate it, then I'll work out, okay, what can they actually play? How can I make it sound like the right thing? Is it marimbas? Is it vibes? Is it bells? I don't know. Is it synth? I'm not worrying about any of that right now. I'm just worrying about producing something that sounds like it has an identity. Okay, so let's listen to what we've got so far. And we can even, let's just like loop this across. And again, this may suck, and I'm open to it. I'm open to it sucking. So, because if it sucks, then at least I can make a decision. If I don't like it, I'll chop something out. I actually like it, and I'm inspired. Okay, let's get rid of this bass. Let's talk very quickly, specifically, and then we'll talk broad strokes. The end of the day, I'm not married to anything. I'm married to the feelings and the direction and making sure that the visual and the battery has what they need to do to kind of get to where they need to go. So my only goal in this part of the process, oh, I just realized you can't see my keyboard. Sorry. What I was going to say is my only goal at this part of the process is to make sure that I'm creating a mood and a universe. I'm not married to anything. I'm not married to any harmonic or melodic things. Like if someone in my team says, hey, this would be cool, but can you move it by a beat, or can we change this note, or can we change this harmony? I'm fine with it because I'm not, you know what I mean? Like my mental state right now is just create, like what you said, just create something to get people reacting. Okay. But more than that, I think the broader stroke point I wanted to make is I think that your most valuable skill as a composer and designer, I want you to think about is, I want you to feel like you're really good reactor. It sounds weird, but I think that there's a part of me that says, man, I wish I could sit down and just come up with the most beautiful melody ever. But then if I don't necessarily have that skill set in that moment, well, then I'm stuck and I can't do anything else. But if I have the skill set of, well, if I put something down and I can react to it and I can think about the next step and the next step, and then, oh, that inspires me to do this, or, oh, that inspires me to move this rhythm, or, oh, I know I can find a sound that will make this more interesting, or I can put on this cello patch and I think that'll give it some direction, or, oh, I think I can add like a little tambourine part here and I think that'll make it interesting. Does that make sense? Like that's where I'm trying to have my brain be, is in that reactionary inspiration place, and less in let me get it right. And I'm trying to lean into my musical instincts, my natural improvisatory instincts, the thing that is coming out of me naturally, because if I rely on that, I know it's going to be me. But if I'm like trying to be something else, then I know it's not me. Does that make sense? So like the act of improvisation, yes, you end up being stuck in what you can do, and that's okay because we can always change it, right? Like, so even these little licks right here, like what came out is what I could physically do or make up. Does it make it like the best thing in the world? No. It's just circumstantial to what I, Kevin Shaw, in this moment at, 11 a.m. could muster getting around my microphone onto my keyboard. But that's okay. I rely on my instincts. I'll put it down and then I'll go in there and I'll shape it and I'll phrase it. And I'll listen to it 50 times and like try to get it right. So some of this, what we're doing right now is just for the sake of interest and speed. But, like what I took, like it's been 30 minutes we've been working on this, like it's not bad in terms of like, hey, we got 45 seconds of music, like, could you imagine like what would your life be like if you could write a minute of music a day? That's different from orchestrating a minute of music a day. But like, I'm trying to put myself in the mode of like, man, if I get like 2 minutes of music for my group done this week in terms of like, oh, we really feel good, we can start writing battery parts, we can do the visual, then all I got to do is orchestrate the pit. It's no problem. But if I'm thinking, man, I got to orchestrate 2 minutes of pit, oh my God, like I'm freaking out. So some of this, what I'm showing you is like very specific composition strategy to what we have to live in terms of deadlines and delivery and partners and battery and visual. Does that make sense? Like this is like, I'm trying not to be in just think about composition in a global composition way. It's like, think about composition as it relates to what it is that we have to do. And the other thing I would highly encourage, if you do this or not, I would highly encourage you to just give yourself a goal. Like, I'm going to write 30 seconds of music every day. And it's like no agenda. You're just going to write something, and you're going to just, the other thing is like part of this process, it helps me hone down my template, like making the template more comfortable for you. Right. So like if there's some sounds on, like, for example, I love these like staccato string sounds. They take a second to load. But like just having this template means I can like literally I can take this and I can put it here and just like, does this inspire me when I hear that? So let's see. I don't know, it's kind of cool. So let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so I can't really hear this melody. So look, I've got vibes and crotales and bells. So let's rock this out and add some, crotales and some bells and some vibes. And maybe I can hear this melody again. Oops. So, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of cool, like, but I'm just reacting. And that's it. Like, and it might be cool to like, so one of the things I was going to talk about is what I got inspired as I was listening to this was, okay, this is cool. The melody reprise is cool because now it's something that we can like relate to what we did before. But what's going to make this interesting is potentially like doing a bass line that's going to like interact and like kick off of these different melodies. So that's what I was going to play around with next was, let's see if we can D flat. Okay, so I kind of messed up there at the end, but that's okay. I'm just gonna like literally, I'm gonna take it down. I don't care. I'm gonna quantize it because the reason why I say I don't care is because at least I know this was my initial like first improvisation. Does that make sense? I think it's important to start developing that skill of trusting your initial improvisation, even if you messed up, because you know where you messed up and you can come back and like delete that stuff, right? But it ceases becoming an improvisation if you're constantly just like sitting there trying to nail something. So I would highly recommend that just record like literally the first pass and then change it later. So let me quantize this back to the eighth note. Maybe quarter. Let's do the quarter for now. The next key though is, and we can work more on like templates and Sibelius, because I think that's the next step, is orchestration wise, is getting your Sibelius template in such a condition and linked up to Logic that going from here to Sibelius is not a huge process, right? Like, so you can have Sibelius open, and like what I would do is I would go in here and like once I feel good about it, I would join this, export that as a MIDI file, and then just drop it into my Sibelius, just really quickly get the rhythms right. And now at least I've got all my notes into the Sibelius, and then I can start orchestrating and pulling stuff out and trying some stuff out, right? And the other thing I was going to talk about is like let's say this was your idea of what the marimba part would be. Well, I would export this, put it in Sibelius, and then now let's talk about the reality of what this sounds like. So maybe this is just a sketch. This isn't the final product, but once you figure out the reality of what the marimbas can play, it's notated, it's got phrasing, it's got dynamics, then you can just put it back in to either Logic or just continue to use your Sibelius as the playback. Most of this is just a first instinctual improvisation. Okay, so once you get past that, the reaction part, that's you being a composer, in my opinion. Little funky bass note in here. I might arbitrarily move that over because I needs more. It's kind of empty over there. Thoughts?
I like how the bass line like interacts with the melody. I do think it would be cool if there's a few points where they happened at the same time. Like I liked how like the first time it happened, it was right at the end, like it gave it kind of like a sense of like resolution. But I do think that it might give it a little bit more like structure or direction if they lined up from time to time.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things I was going to do is at the end of this call, I'll upload this Logic doc, and it would be cool to see like, hey, if I sent you this, what would you do to like make it yours? Like, how would you change it? How would it react? Like, and then I guess my next assignment would be cool. Write the impact. Cause I feel like right where we ended is like the first ensemble moment. I wouldn't do any ensemble playing here. Like maybe this is the snares, you know? And then I would say, cool, what does it sound like from here to here? Like, how does this develop into a moment? So I'll throw that out there if anyone wants to mess around with it. And if you like it, take it, use it. If you want to use this as your, as your music, like take it. That's part of being in this group is you get a chance to, to be here. Chad, you had a thought?
No, just enjoying the process. Watching you go through the process.
Yeah, man. And we've got a couple of those little composition starter nuggets on the hub as well that you can play with and mess around with and use as your own. I'll put this one up as well, and you feel free to use it if you like it. I mean, this is kind of cool. Like if I had a project and someone's like, hey, I've got a group and I need some music, I would be like, all right, well, here's a minute. Like rocked it out, I think you're right. Like I would spend a little bit of time crafting this bass line. The other thing I would mess around with is like, okay, so on my template, I've got these like strings, right? So, I've got my faders on my strings, so I can play around with that. I got some tremolo strings. So I might mess around with that. Like maybe there's some tremolo strings at the beginning. So let me open this up here. Give myself a second to hit it. So I might put that in just to like, okay, that's kind of cool. But then I don't know if I love it, but I have it, right? Maybe just keep it nice and soft. So then I would just like record in the automation data. So let's try this. Okay, so that's a first pass. Capture that recording. It just recorded, you can see it right here. It recorded the mod wheel info. So now when I play that back, let's see what it sounds like. Oh, computer's freaking out. I don't love that it feels like it resolved right here. Like the idea should continue, in my opinion, to like develop, or maybe this isn't like the D flat, but maybe it's like a B natural or something where harmonically it has like a little bit of tension. And the other thing is like the mix is all jacked, right? You can see like I'm starting to peak. So some elements are like really loud. So this is where I would probably at this point in the process, just go through and join things and like start making sure that, things are balanced a little bit better. Some of these bass notes probably get a little too hot in the velocity and that sort of thing. Like this melody probably got a little too hot. So I would go through and just like clean some of that up. But again, I wouldn't worry too much about it because at the end of the day, we're just trying to think of creating a moment, right? We're trying to create like, this is a minute, let's say this is a minute of the show, like up to like right here, you can see the timestamp, want to kind of get up to like right there. So let's say that's the first minute of the show. So it's like 20 seconds, 20 seconds, 20 seconds. It's kind of a nice pace, a nice growth, nice build. And yeah, this is kind of the process I would use. Any other questions on this one? I feel like for 40 minutes, I'll take it. It's not bad. I'm going to save this. I'll save it as, so if you can see, I've got like just this like sketches thing that I just like put the date. What's the date today? 22. Boom, design membership sketch. So yeah, I would highly recommend, like if you can find like 30-40 minutes in the beginning of your day to just sit and compose without an agenda. Now, as you're composing, you might get an agenda and you're like, oh, you know what? This would be really cool for this other show that I'm writing, or this might be cool for that moment that in the show that we're talking about. But just mentally sitting down and like what it does is a couple things. It forces you to develop your skills in terms of moving around your template faster, right? Because the faster you are at your template, the quicker you can be in composition mode. If I'm focused too much on gear mode, I'm going to get frustrated and I'm going to be thinking too much about that stuff and not about composition. So, and just give yourself a time limit. Like, I'm going to sit for 30 minutes. I'm just going to compose, or I want to write 30 seconds of music. That might take you 5 minutes or it might take you an hour, but give yourself some kind of parameter, some kind of goal. And at the beginning, it might be slow and you might yield stuff that you don't really like, and that's okay. But the goal here isn't necessarily to have something to show for it necessarily, but also to kind of just be able to, you know, move faster and build your template, build your skills on your template. Chad, you said you want to hear it again. Yeah, we can listen again. Sorry about the sound thing. My apologies. Here we go. Let's listen one more time. It's freaking out right there. Cool. So I'm going to put this in the hub under, so when this call uploads in the, you guys know where the call recordings are. I'll upload this as a download in the call. So when you go to click on the call and you watch this will be in the downloads, and feel free to download it, make it your own. You have all the MIDI, right? So if you don't, whatever these sounds that I'm using, don't worry about it. Just put in whatever sounds you have. Put in, just like even like the built-in Logic sounds. Don't worry about the sound so much, right? Like even with the Omnisphere stuff, if you don't have not Omnisphere, that's fine. Just like pull up, go to your settings and just like go to, where is it? If you go down here to like Legacy and you go to like Logic, you can go to the synthesizers and then just like find the synth pad and just find something like a blur pad or, let's see, what's some of these, Aurora pad, that's good, Beauty pad, like all these are like really cool sounds. Or you can use like Alchemy, right? Like go to Alchemy and find some pads within Alchemy. These are all free things that are included in Logic. So don't let that slow you down if you don't have my sounds.